hello, everyone. Welcome to All In on Real Estate. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one in my circle was talking about real estate. A lot of times we talked about debt and other things of wealth and finances, but nothing about real estate. So I wanted to start a meetup where people can learn about the different niches of real estate and start building generational wealth for them and their families. So I'm very, very excited for my guest speaker today, Ms. Kim Babb. How you doing, Kim?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me, Aaron.
Good. I'm very excited for this because me and Kim were part of the Game Changers program. This and basically the synopsis of that is to be speakers. We want to be speakers about our niches that we are working on. So me and Kim had to send videos to each other about 1 minute videos to each other about speaking. So about our niche. So Kim critiqued me pretty good, and what happened was I heard her story about her being in property management and things like that, and I was really intrigued, and I asked her to be a guest speaker because I wanted to have this right we're doing right now. So welcome, and I'm going to ask you, like I asked everybody else, what is your origin story and how did you get started in property management?
So thank you for the invite, Aaron, and I'm just pleased to be here to share my story. It's before I get into my story, it's just amazing how much people are interested in my story, and so I'm just honored to be given a platform to share it with others. But I want to start off by saying that I am a Navy mom. My son was 5 years in the Navy, so I'm definitely appreciative of the service that all of you serve. So yeah, I'm Kim Babb, and from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Originally, I sleep in Southern New Jersey. I say that whenever someone asks me where I'm from, I'm like, I'm from Philly. I just happen to sleep in South Jersey. So our story, when I say our, I'm speaking in plural in reference to my husband and I. We have been friends for 40 years, married for 38, and his family is the one that really opened the door for our exposure to real estate investment. Growing up, and I don't know, how many of you can think back to the earliest age of living in your parents' home or your guardian's home. When I was a little girl, I remember, I think it's 5 years old, and the first house that I remember us living in. Moving forward, my parents did own the family home as a primary home, but it wasn't until I met my husband that I was exposed to real estate from a different perspective, not just a primary home, but as an investment. And every time I'm given a platform, I give credence to my mother-in-law, the late Estella Babb, who was just a quiet real estate mogul. She was buying real estate into her 70s. My husband and I married when we were 24, started our family, and I'm not sure what the popcorn is, but started our family, young, starting our careers, had young children. And my mother-in-law would always call us and ask us or tell us, encourage us, you need to buy real estate. We were just trying to make ends meet, right? Why was she so much into real estate? She moved up from Florida to Philadelphia and, brought up a large property, a multifamily. And in her generation, a lot of family members would come to wherever you moved to, you would let them live with you. So she would always buy multifamily units. Fast forward, my husband, if you're familiar with Philadelphia, he grew up in the first ring neighborhood of Center City. So think about Center City, Philadelphia. He grew up in the first ring neighborhood of Center City. So I met him back in the early 80s. That's the only neighborhood he ever knew as a kid. And so his mom, had the family home, had other multifamily units, because back then it was interesting from an ethnic and demographics perspective. African Americans in Philadelphia lived along the waterfront. And then when they built the highways, they actually took her home through eminent domain, and she moved inland up to 21st Street, right? Front Street, Second Street. She moved up to 20th Street. And that's where they lived for many, many years, right? So 50, 60 years she lived there. And she started buying real estate because her peers started dying. And the family either didn't want the house or they would lose the house. So as a factory sewer, and she was a factory sewer in Center City, she was a disciplined saver. She lived a very frugal life, and people would approach her that were about to lose the house. She would buy the house. And so she was known in the neighborhood as someone who would, was interested in buying properties. And that's why we would get the phone calls to say, when she was made aware of a property, you guys need to buy a house. Mom, we don't have the money. So fast forward, she called us one time, and she had been made aware of 2 properties side by side. And she was buying one, and she wanted us to buy the other. It was $14,000. We said, Mom, we don't have the money. And she made a deal with my husband and said, I have saved $14,000 for you as your inheritance. This is a factory sewer, right? I've saved $14,000 for you. She said, I will give it to you to buy this house with the understanding of when I die, you won't get an inheritance. And she actually gifted our first investment property. And that was back in the early 90s. Again, in the first ring neighborhood of Center City.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And but prior to that first acquisition, that first investment acquisition, we had squirreled away money and saved, and brought our primary home. And to answer the question, Aaron, of how we got into property management, we would manage my mother-in-law's triplexes. And we just basically, it was just brute force learning as we went along, because the carrot that she dangled was, if we managed it, we could keep the rent, and we were young, feeling our way through managing her multi-family units. So that's how we got started. That's a long-winded answer, but managing my mother-in-law's properties, and then she gifted us our first investment property. And I frame that gift as the gift that keeps giving, because we still own that property 20 plus years later.
I think that's awesome. And
Peggy, I think Peggy's saying something, but she's muted.
Oh, I was just going to say, I bet the value's a little higher than 14,000 now. More like 6 digits.
Yeah, very much.
Closer to 7.
just sorry for the
Still.
with
That's okay.
Yeah,
We're gonna roll through.
Yeah, people having trolls, so we gotta get ready to troll. So they get reported quickly. Got experience now with that one. What's up, bud? Let me ask you the next question. So, you started with everything like that. What was the next step forward for you after you got started and things like that? What was the next steps?
So after we got the gift that keeps on giving, a series of life experiences happened that really motivated us to see the light bulb go off. In my career, around that time, I had been back then, I'm talking about in the 90s, when you got let go, it was called downsizing, right? So I got downsized twice from my job. My husband got downsized once. We had 3 young children, and the light bulb went off with the first investment property that my mother-in-law gifted us, and we inherited a tenant with it. I think they were paying like $200 a month. And we realized that people will pay you to live in your property. And having been downsized is not a good feeling. I don't know if anybody's ever been laid off or let go, you know, your financial world is turned upside down. You realize that you do not have control of your personal economy. And we decided after receiving that first investment property that someone would pay you to live in your property, that this was a vehicle to create our own personal economy. And we got bit by the bug. And we started going to the city of Philadelphia's sheriff sales. We started educating ourselves. We started going to conferences and workshops to try to wrap our head around what this real estate thing was about. And that was, you know, that was like 30 years ago. So to answer your question, the light bulb went off and we were just frustrated with not being in control of our personal economy, and said, we're going to use real estate as the way to create our own personal economy and you know, be able to deliver on the push and the ideology to our children to seek higher education. You know, we said, we're encouraging this, but how in the heck are we going to pay for it? So that was the other strategy, was to buy a property for each child and have, you know, the positive cash flow pay for those college tuitions.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So you guys got started. You guys start seeing the light bulb. Everything starts going off. I guess you guys are very, very excited at the start of it. Was there any moments over the next, let's say the next 5 to 10 years that you were like, man, I don't know if we can do this, babe. Like this might be too much, or it was just a continued development for you guys?
So what's interesting about us as a couple, my husband and I mentioned earlier that we've been friends for 40 years, married for 36. I can't see a show of hands, but if you're married or in a relationship, you know, just pray for me. Okay, because, you know, being married, being in a relationship is work, right? And having your spouse be also your business partner is added work, right? Because it never shuts off. However, both of us are artists. We met on our jobs 40 years ago as artists. So we both are cut from the creative cloth, right? Of being able to see things and imagine things. So when we talk about real estate and that first property, that, you know, that first gift that keeps on giving, and layering on educating ourselves about this industry, like, you know, our minds just started rolling. And again, we got bit by the bug. We bird before we knew what, before that was trending. Like we were burned like 20 years ago, you know, leveraging our primary assets, you know, doing home equity lines of credit and acquiring. We were really in like an acquisition mode for probably a good 5 years, just buying assets and just letting them sit. And let me just also just say our asset class is single family. We primarily, well, we only have single family units. Our model is acquisition, gut rehab, rent and hold. So we basically went to a training early in our career of learning, came across a gentleman that owned, you know, multiple apartment buildings in New York as an instructor of a workshop. And his model was that each of one of his assets was a cow, right? And when you talk about generational wealth, if you keep the cow, you can milk the cow into future generations. And as long as you take care of the cow, you can milk it. So we've adopted that ideology. So we are buy and hold investors. We are buy and hold investors. But what's interesting to kind of underscore that comment was before COVID, we, you know, looked at our business model and said, okay, we want to scale up and get into multifamilies. And we decided to sacrifice one of our cows we decided to sacrifice that first investment property that was gifted to us for $14,000. We put it on the market in the fourth quarter of, I guess, 2019 for $390,000. We said we would sell the cow, use that cash to, to acquire some other multifamily assets, and then COVID hit. So had a buyer, didn't work, took it off the market, back into the rental community, and it's been cash flowing forever. So it didn't take us long to get a tenant and just get it back into the rental mode.
Cool. So between the downsizing of 2008 and COVID, what is your biggest learning lessons during that time frame?
So that's a two-part question. Between the 2008, I'll start with that one first.
Yeah.
Again, we have been tremendously blessed based on the market that we have invested in, right? Thanks again to Mom Babb, first ring neighborhood of Center City. Three things: we brought at the right time, in the right location, at the right time, for the right amount. The right location at the right time for the right price. The Graduate Hospital area, which is the name of this first ring neighborhood of Center City. An adjoining neighborhood is Point Breeze. Graduate Hospital, based on statistics, is one of the most desirable places to live. Okay, we're talking about gentrification on steroids. So when we talk about asset growth, the assets have grown tremendously, and so 2008, interestingly enough, our assets were very stable as far as value goes. We lost no value in those assets during 2008. When we talk about COVID, it's interesting that we actually rented 3 units during COVID. So we believe that the secret sauce of our ability to weather the storm is our property management skill set and the systems that we have in place, the policies that we have in place, how we operate our rental business. We self-manage, okay, and we always have, we got that start from managing my mother-in-law's properties, and we've self-managed ours. We have a tenant community. We just don't, have tenants apply for our units. We have a certain tone. We operate like a business. It's not a hobby. We have systems in place. We have a culture, if you will. So during COVID, we, like I mentioned, rented 3 of our units, at different times over the past 2 years. We've had a 0% eviction rate in 38 years. I'm going to say that again. We have a 0% eviction rate over 38 years of managing not only our properties, but my mother-in-law's properties. And during COVID, we had 100% rent collection and 0 delinquency. So we are in, we have good relationships with our tenants. We practice what I call the 10 Commandments of Landlording. And the one that I really, lean on is that while I'm friendly, I'm not your friend. This is business. And we look at our tenants as our business partners. They are our on-site property managers. And so basically we set a great tone when we're screening our applicants to, have them meet all the criteria, but also determine if we have chemistry, if it's going to be a good relationship.
I think that's awesome. I mean, 30 years and not one, that is awesome right there, Kim.
So Aaron, what I'm going to do is I'm going to correct you because of Coach Val. And we know who Coach Val is. So we are game changers. Look at that face. So if you have ever had a teacher that has pushed you to greatness.
Mhm.
And that feeling is not always comfortable. That's Coach Val. So in assessing, you know, our niche and what our area is, you know, I said to her, and I've had in print that we have, you know, 30 plus years, you know, of a 0% eviction rate. And Coach Val said, no, how many years is it? Don't just say, you know, 30 plus years. So she forced me to go back and really count. So it's 38 years of property managing with a 0% eviction rate.
Yeah, Coach Bell was right. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's great to say 30 plus, but I do agree with her for a lot of things. That is true. I mean, 38 years is more better than 30 plus. So I definitely agree with you, but that's excellence right there, in my opinion, because you don't hear that. I think I never heard that in my time in real estate. It's been short, but I never heard that, that somebody had that track record like that. And it's a reflection on your leadership that you guys have. Before I open up, I got a couple more questions before I open up for the attendees to ask you questions. What would you say to a person start off in property management now?
So I teach, I train. I am a real estate investor and a landlord strategist. I coach aspiring and established landlords. And what I say to them is, this is landlording, property management. It's a business. It's not a hobby. And I think that, you know, the mindset has to be adjusted to look at it that way, right? When we think about COVID, there's so much trauma that landlords have experienced in the buy and hold space because of COVID, because of the eviction moratoriums and tenants not paying, et cetera. So it has really, in my opinion, tested their business models. COVID has really been a test of buy and hold investors' business models, right? And so it's kind of like a bridge, like, you know, there's an expansion that's built into the engineering of the bridge. And if it's built right, then under stress, it can expand and then contract. COVID has really pushed, you know, property managers and landlords, you know, to the brink. So it's really a test of your business model. Yeah.
And where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Like, what do you have anything that you're striving for, anything like that?
So what I did not say in my introduction is that I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a certified game changer, as Aaron and I both are. But but I'm also a recent retiree from my 9-to-5. September will be 2 years. And so this 38-year journey of real estate investing and owning real estate has been, for both my husband and I mentioned earlier of us getting downsized, we've been working on 9-to-5s. We've been working 9 to 5, you know, in you know, on our jobs, and working 6 to midnight on building our real estate business. So we've been blessed to be able to take that $14,000 gift and you know, transform it into a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio that's producing for us, that has allowed me to retire from my state position 2 years earlier than a typical employee who's trying to get to 25 years. So I retired with 23 years working, interestingly enough, for the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority for 23 years in the real estate industry, in the area of focusing on how to do urban redevelopment in urban cities all across the state of New Jersey, providing financing for them, talking about strategic planning and redevelopment of their commercial corridors. So I've been fortunate to have a career that really ran parallel to our real estate business, and it was a great compliment. So, you know, in reference to the question of, you know, where do I see myself in the future? I really am just amazingly free right now to do whatever the heck I want to do. So Babb Properties is the business that we, you know, created years ago. When I retired, I started Peggy Legacy Real Estate Consulting. I retired in September. I started Legacy Real Estate Consulting in December as our education arm to really pour out into the real estate and investment community, the systems, the techniques, the policies, the ideology, and the experience that we have been afforded. I believe that, and I've embraced this adage, that we should learn, earn from what we've learned, and then return it to the community. So I'm in the stage right now where I'm returning what I've learned throughout my career, throughout my life, back into the real estate or into the community. I like to talk to young people. I'll talk to anybody and share our life journey to help inspire, to be an inspiration and a motivation to just start. When we talk about wealth building, we're all on the meetup. I believe we all understand the value and the power of real estate. So I want to pour that into the community. So that's where I see myself in the future. Just really, honing, building bigger networks, sharing, growing, and enjoying life.
Love it, love it. So last question for me. We talked about this before we came online. So like you said, you had your 9 to 5 and then you did this from 6 to 12, property management.
Right.
But you shared with me that you travel and you exercise. So how did that help you along your journey along the way?
So what Aaron is speaking about is that I am a world traveler. I am a runner. I'm a wogger, really. I walk and I jog, I'm not doing no high speed stuff, but so I've been blessed to live multifaceted lives. I think in my bio, it was mentioned fashion designer. So when we talk about my mother-in-law was a factory worker, my mother was a factory sewer as well. But her passion was fashion. So she was a fashion designer. She worked 9 to 5 in the factory, and then 6 to midnight, she was a fashion designer. So I grew up with her making all of our clothes, my wedding gown, my prom gown, and everything. So I picked that up and I started a fashion design company and built it over 10 years, right? And I'm sharing this story for a reason, because I got burnt out because I was working my 9 to 5, building a fashion design company, and it consumed me. And then the creative juices said, okay, it's time to push a pause button. I was exposed to a friend of mine over lunch who was training for a marathon. She said, you should train with me. I said, oh, I don't run, number one. Now I had stopped, turned the light out on the fashion design business, but she presented an organization to me called Black Girls Run, which is a national organization, just, motivating women of color who are, the victims of just health disparities to move. So I researched that. I got bit by the bug. That was in 2016. And I've been walking ever since. And locally with a group of women. And then there's a subgroup within that organization that are 50 staters, right? And their goal is to run in all 50 states. And I said, wait a minute now. I like the way that sounds. I need motivation to move. I like travel. And I bit the apple on that, right? So I have ran in 35 states, 3 continents, and 5 islands. So I take runcations. So I ran in Seattle, Washington last year. So that's my motivation. I just ran in West Africa this past February and March. So I'm just combining exercise with travel and, with an effort to stay healthy. But I'm always looking at real estate all around the world. So some of those trips I can write off for business, but we're not going to talk about that now. But when I was in Africa, just so much development, so much real estate over there. I actually interviewed a number of real estate investors to get an understanding of how they finance deals, how the real estate market works. So I'm always, tugging and pulling and including real estate in everything that I do.
Great. I love it. I love it. I love it. please, whoever wants to ask, please ask Kim a question. I mean, she has a credible story. Love it, Kim.
I do. You know, I always have questions. I'm a curious person. So first, I'd like to acknowledge you for saying something that I haven't heard in so many years since the person that actually explained this to the real estate industry, that there's 3 really important parts of finding the right property. And you said them all, and real estate people can only remember location, location, location. But in truth, to find the right property is at the right time, at the right price, at the right location. You are the first person to say what the 3 most important parts of finding it doesn't actually matter what it is. When you're looking for a deal, it could be in any aspect of life, right? But it's always time, price, location.
Yeah.
That. And then when you talked about you were selling the property, your gifted property, I'm just curious as to if you were going to do a 1031 exchange on that, because a lot of people don't know about 1031 and they end up with a lot of taxes because nobody explained that to them.
Absolutely. It was definitely a consideration. It was definitely a consideration. You know, it's not commonly used, like you said, but we've done our research and we were moving towards that strategy. We actually, during our acquisition craze, had the foresight in those 2 gentrified neighborhoods to buy a vacant lot, which we still own. And we're at the crossroads of having to make a decision on what to do with it. Before COVID, actually, you know, part of that selling of that cow was to generate cash to build new construction and do a flip on that vacant lot. And or now, if we liquidated, you know, as our retirement parachute, we are looking at a 1031 exchange.
Well, you can't exchange it to something you already own.
So we can use it to buy other real estate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you go find that before you put yours on the market.
Yep. Because there's
Yep.
that small window of time.
Yeah, well, that's why you find the property that you want to close on and do a simultaneous closing. You just don't, you can put yours in escrow, you just don't close on it to you. But really the best thing to do is go find the property. And then once you have the property, put yours, especially in this market, you'll sell in a week. In other markets, you have to watch that. I mean, sometimes it takes 2 years to actually find time, price, location, right?
Mhm,
Timing has to be right. Right now, we're at the high. But for you to do what you want to do, you might want to be more at a low. And as if you want to do construction, you already own the property, I would think free and clear.
mhm.
You just could go get a construction loan.
Yes.
You need to do all your entitlements, so you need some money for that. But after that, you've got, they want to see 10 or 15% in the deal, and they like to see the property free and clear, but it should be pretty easy to get a construction loan.
Yeah, and
If
it's
you need
interesting.
anything on that, I could support you in a small way, but I also could have some people that are experienced in that support you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have questions.
Who is that?
That's me right here.
Pronounce your name.
Can.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Hello. Thank you so much for your awesomeness and sharing. I even came in late. I wish I was here earlier, but there's some, taking care of stuff on my side, in my unit. But nice to meet you. So my questions, I have a few of them. The first question was, at any point in, because you said 38 years. 38 years is quite a long time, longer than I've been on the planet. So so at any point in your journey, did you or your husband feel like, man, we're in over our heads, let's just call it a day, let's stop here with this amount of cows, or let's sell it all? Or what was the motivation to keep going for 38 years? Because I know real estate has its moments where yeah.
I'm just chuckling at that question. Just just thinking about those those peaks and valleys, right? The valleys where, you know, my husband and I actually just thought about just liquidating everything, but it was more so, you know, just frustration with the world, you know, and we joke about, we just need to sell everything, buy an island and just get out of here, you know, but it was more so in a broader sense of frustration versus, you know, frustration and anguish with our real estate directly. I'm going to say no. We complement each other very well in that my husband is a self-taught craftsman. Okay, he knows all the trades. After the the gift property was the first property where, and this is where, you know, the relationship management comes in with business. And I convinced him to hire a general contractor. Let's hire a GC, because he is very hands-on. Like, he can build the house from the ground up, but I would always say to him, but I want it in my lifetime. Like, seriously, dude, like, come on. So I convinced him to hire a GC, him act as the project manager. We had that rehab done in 3 months and went to market. It was great, right? And so because we use that strategy time after time on our properties, it was, you know, less of a headache, and, you know, pushing us to being frustrated and all that kind of stuff. I think most of the frustration for buy and hold investors is in the tenant area, right? And I coach, you know, landlords all the time. It's really like a therapy session. I put them on the couch. So how long have you been feeling this way? Like, you know, but it's typically, you know, a headache tenant, and just a relationship gone awry with the tenant. So because, I mean, I'm 5 feet even, but I'm very clear with people. I'm very detail oriented. So I haven't had to come out of character with any of our tenants because, I mean, I lay it down at the beginning. So not to lose track, but my husband is the craftsman and I am the administrator. So, you know, the positions that I've held, I retired from the state of New Jersey as Chief Strategy Officer for the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. So I've had a lot of leadership, you know, experience, team building, you know, and all that. So I brought that into our business, coupled with my husband having the skill set around craft. So we really are just, you know, a great complement to each other that has moved us through any kind of rough patches or challenges that we face. So we haven't said that we're going to, you know, throw in the towel because it's really frustrating at all. We see it as a blessing. We see our success and our ability to take $14,000 and turn it into a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio as an opportunity and an example to our children and our grandchildren that you can build wealth through real estate. And by the way, it's not a bad position to be in. Talk about estate planning, you know, for your parents to leave you with a springboard versus just starting at ground zero.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I'm in my first, and, you know, fixing it up so I can use it as, you know, my cow to lead to the other opportunities, which brings me to my second question was how did you and your husband go about funding the first couple of purchases that you bought? And at this present moment, do you have enough cows where you wouldn't need traditional lending, and you're able to be your own bank in a sense? Or are you still using the traditional route? So how'd you get the first couple? How'd you fund those, FHA conventional, et cetera? And what does the funding look like for you now these days?
Right. So what I shared at the onset of the conversation was that my mother-in-law gifted us $14,000 to buy our first investment property. And so that was like the strike of the match of us getting started. We had already acquired our primary home at that point. So we had our primary home, then this investment property. And we just started leveraging. We took a home equity line on our primary to fix up that first rental property. And my mother-in-law passed away. And she was buying real estate, like I mentioned, into her 70s. So, you know, my husband had an inheritance. We used that as well. And we just started leveraging. So we had 10 properties with 2 mortgages. So think about the equity, think about the cash flow. So we just started reinvesting that cash into acquisition and rehabbing of properties. Where we are now is we're down to 8 with 2 mortgages. And, you know, I talk to investors all the time. I hear investors all the time, you know, they want 100 doors, they want 50 doors, you know, and my response is, you know, it's whatever your flavor is. Like, it's all about what kind of lifestyle that you want, and, you know, what type of real estate investments are going to provide that type of lifestyle, and your risk tolerance, right?
Mhm.
I know investors that have 100 doors that have 100 mortgages. You know, they've got a $10 million portfolio with, you know, $9.5 million worth of debt. Like, if that's your play, then that's fine. That's not from our playbook. So, you know, we're, and you know, back to Peggy's, you know, observation, we bought at the right time, at the right location for the right price. So we've got a lot of equity we can leverage, and we've got cash flow. So, you know, where we are is fine for us, but
Nice.
I will leave it there. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have one more quick question. And that is, do you have a asset protection? Do you have all these like in separate LLCs or in a trust or in your name, or how do you hold?
So that's always a good question. Just starting out years ago, we didn't know, right? So we have a couple of properties in our personal names, but then the light bulb went off through education. We created Babb Properties LLC, and then we started acquiring in the LLC. And, you know, there's different schools of thought that, you know, you should have a different LLC for each property. Again, it depends on what your strategy is, right? So what we did is we brought umbrella policy. We brought umbrella policies on for both our personal and our business as a protection plan. And then we do have a trust. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I apologize. I've got a baby here. That's why I've been silent. But I'm just curious. You mentioned that you really like running all over the world. I think that's super fascinating because I like to run too. Where has been like one of your favorite places that you've run, or where would you recommend I look into?
That you look into?
Or I guess maybe just your favorite place to run.
Yeah. Oh man, what's my favorite place to run? That's a hard question. Oh, I know. I will share with you. Who is it? Ashton, yeah. So my biggest accomplishment in running, and I mean, I see myself as a leader, right? I have great leadership skills, and I can lead from the back, the front, the side, or wherever, right? So when I got into this running thing and talk about that 50-state subgroup that's a part of Black Girls Run, there's a 50-state captain, right? And as a matter of fact, we just celebrated her last week. She finished her 50th state in Hawaii, right? So 2 years ago, she convinced me that we could run, that we could get, because we're counting the states, right? We're trying to get to 50. We could run 4 states in 4 days. And I said, wow. And she convinced me. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So I signed up. What I didn't realize was we ran the 4 corners: Colorado, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, the highest altitude that I had ever ran. I did not realize what I had signed up for until like a month ahead of time. I ran 4 half marathons in 4 days in 4 states in the highest altitude that I had ever ran. I have a friend, her husband is a doctor, and we talked before this trip, and I'm sharing with her, And her husband's name is Mike, and she's sharing with Mike what Kim is running in 4 states in 4 days and 4.5 in Colorado. He's like, is she trying to kill herself? What the hell? And he's in like medical books trying to find like what kind of medicine I could take to like manage this, management, the acclimating of the altitude to my system. So that's like the biggest highlight for my running experience. And it was truly an emotional accomplishment for me. It was truly an emotional accomplishment to push myself mentally and physically to run basically 2 marathons in 4 days. Wow. And I sat at the airport, this really small airport, with my 50-state coach, because it was just her and I. And I wrote, a great just testimonial about the experience. And for me, as a woman of color, and at that time, the movie Harriet had just come out, about Harriet Tubman. And the first, and I'm kind of getting on tangent with this running, but this is the last point. The first race that I did after I had lunch with that friend was in Niagara Falls. In Niagara Falls, it was a half marathon in tribute to Harriet Tubman. And all of the runners had a t-shirt with her image on the back. So this 4-state run that I did, I took that t-shirt with me, knowing that I would wear it on that 4th day, and that mentally, physically, and spiritually, that I could push myself. Because if my ancestors, with the leadership of Harriet Tubman in the Underground Railroad, could run away from bondage, across from the south to the north, snow, sleet, rain and hail, then I could accomplish this. And so I did.
Any more questions for Kim?
Kim, have you thought about any syndications? I know, oh, someone was gonna say something. I know that's a thing for, a lot of investors, syndications. Has that come across your table, or thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, talk about strategy, part of the strategy, is syndications. I was just researching Fundrise, is an investment vehicle to invest passively in REITs and real estate funds. So absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we have, so right now, because of how long we've had our portfolio, and the changing of the neighborhood, product being very high end, very luxury, we are on our 6th upgrade of our properties, because we want to be competitive, right? We want to maximize the rents. So we're upgrading hardwood floors, granite counters, stainless steel. We're putting finishes, high-end finishes in there, because in these neighborhoods you have new construction, 3-story new construction, roof decks. So we want to stay competitive. And so we're on the reinvestment right now of upgrading our assets. And so today I was painting. We have a photo shoot tomorrow. So while we self-manage, we do have a realtor that shows all of our properties. They get us a short list of tenants to screen, but tomorrow is photo day for the property. So it'll be photographed. So we needed to get it, all done and finished. So we still roll up our sleeves and get involved in the grit, of those properties. Yeah.
Nice. And you have professional photography done, right?
Yes. This our realtor is just a part of their services. They come in with a professional photographer and they photograph the whole property. They list it on Zillow and all of the different sites, and they manage all of the showings, etc.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. I know I had a question. She said.
Somebody had a question?
Yeah, it was how did you ever answer the one? How do you use your scale, your business? What was your certain strategy?
Yes, we basically,
I'm sorry.
just to recast, the question is how did we scale?
Yes.
Leveraging.
Who and how and what did you use to scale your business? Was there a certain strategy?
Leveraging our assets. We've had home equity lines of credit, which is what we primarily do. Well, what we did to acquire. I mentioned, when my mother-in-law passed away, my husband had an inheritance. We used that to scale. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Right now we have business lines of credit because, we have so much equity and we have relationships with our lender. So that's how we scale, basically leveraging assets, using home equity lines for acquisition and, cash flow from the rents.
Kim, I have a question for you. I just had a thought. And I'm asking this question because of my place that I'm in right now. So this is my first. I just got it end of December. So it's just been a few months. It's a multi. I'm in one unit. I've got tenants in the others. So I wanted to know, have you ever, because I want to do some repairs, right? Some rehabs here and there, but it's occupied. So have you ever ask the tenant if they would mind going to a hotel for a few days so you could do some renovations in their apartment, or what's your wiggle around that when you want to do renos and you have tenants in it?
And I think it depends on what type of renovations that you want to do, right? And as I mentioned, we're on the upgrade and rehab cycle right now. And we've strategically done them on the turnover, right? Because it's always easier to do it with the empty property. However, talk about, our longevity in the game. Our longest tenant has been with us for 14 years, right? And we wanted to do upgrades to that property. So, I mean, it was a yeoman's job, but we just had the entire house painted with them in it. So talk about
even the inside.
Yes, painting the inside. It was a yeoman's job, but the tenant worked with us. So again, it depends on what kind of renovations you're thinking about. What kind of renovations are you thinking about?
Floors, painting, appliances, but one of the tenants particularly just told me she doesn't want to move her stuff. She doesn't want to move anything in the apartment, so she'd rather not have it painted. So
she'd rather not have it painted. Okay, so here we go with, it's that fine line in that, it's like a case by case situation, right? So for us, it was a service to our tenant. It was a service to our property that because I go in and do maintenance walkthroughs, right? Twice a year. Yeah. And I'm looking at the walls, I'm looking at the condition, like I want to serve you, you are paying us a rent to live in a quality unit and this property needs to be painted. Yeah. Bam. That's the bottom line. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's not like I'm asking you to do it. It's our asset. Yeah. And I'm saying it needs to be painted, or I'm doing a walkthrough and I can see the carpet has wear and tear on it. I'm not asking you if the carpet needs to be replaced. I'm saying to you, the carpet is going to be replaced. Now, with this tenant that's been with us for 14 years, the second floor has carpet, but we decided not to change the carpet because, you got to pull everything out of the bedrooms. I mean, painting was the easier task versus replacing the carpet. So I think it depends on what kind of renovation you want to do and how you approach it with your tenant as far as your tone and your tenor. And you know, and it being a statement versus I'm asking you as a tenant.
Yeah, no, for this one, I gave her the option, but
Okay.
I'm thinking of the fact that, leases are up soon, rates are going up. If you want to be in your apartment at like this and pay the market rent, then I'm good. That's good with me. Just sign on the dotted line.
Yes.
If you desire for a change, let me know and we'll have. So that's
Yes.
that's the next dialogue in a few
Yes.
months. Yeah.
And that's definitely a good point that you just brought up, because the unit that we are completing the renovations on now, that's about to go to market, the tenants have been with us for about 6 years, right? And the market has definitely changed, compared to when they moved in. And so there were 3 roommates, and they would cycle out, a new one would come in, etc. But the bottom line is we decided mutually not to renew their lease because we needed to do upgrades. They moved out in December, which is not a norm for us. All of our leases expired during the peak rental season between April and June or July. So we mutually agreed, the tenant and us, that they would end their lease in December. So we've used the last 6 months in an empty unit to upgrade that property. All new hardwood floors on the second floor, ripped out stairs, finished, converted a carpeted basement to a tile floor. So, it's easier to work in a vacant property. So if you can coordinate with a tenant, a mutual, departure, and use that window, then that's great.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for everything you've shared. I thoroughly full joyed hearing your experience. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, look, we're going to end the meetup. That doesn't mean that we're going to leave. We're just going to end the recording part of it.
And Aaron, I just put my contact information in the chat.
Cool. And I think that we can talk afterwards a little bit. I know that you have a connection that I think will be really good for you since you're in the same area. So hold on for that for a minute. But I just want to say thank you to Kim. Thank you so much for being a great guest speaker. You can catch this meetup, the replay, on the YouTube page tonight. So guys want to try catch this out, please go to the YouTube page and things like that. I want to say thank you, Kim, once again. I'll see you guys next week. God bless you.
Thank you.